Hey everybody, Texas Stroker here, Lance's Performance Shop, Mopars.com. What we have on the workbench in front of us is Capri Shallow and Deep SAE 3/8 drive. Impact sockets, we go from 5/16 to 1 inch. Granted, it's backwards. I prefer small over there, 1 inch over there, but not a bad setup overall, right? Well, there's one small problem, and that problem is we have a set of semi-deeps. So our 2-row Wessling tray that Capri included in the set kind of becomes a problem, right? It's our stopping point, if you will. Plus, while it's super nice and good for stationary stuff or just roll around the shop type of a deal, I sort of want the ability to go mobile, throw something around on your vehicle, throw it in the truck if I need to, and that's where this is going to come in. And if you're sitting here and you're like, wow, yeah, cool, you know, so shallow, semi-deep, deep, sweet, you got it covered. Well, keen eyes would notice that this looks about right, this looks a little small, and that looks a little big. That's because the way the Socket Boss is oriented, we have 1/4, 3/8, and 1/2 inch drive. That's just sort of the way they come populated. Now, if you recall from our Ernst haul where we showcased the new orange and green colors, you'll remember that we brought in this, which is just a 2-row 3/8 drive Socket Boss. And you're like, oh, we'll use that. Well, think with me here. So if we have shallow and deep, we don't have a place for semi-deep. So what is a guy to do? Well, quite simple. We are going to go with the advice Ernst gave me, that the best way to go about what I'm trying to do, which is make a 3-row 3/8 drive Socket Boss setup, is to buy the 3-row and then couple it with the 2 3/8 rails. So we're going to go kind of from the ground up. The labels from that Socket Boss are right here, so I'm going to throw them to the side. And then this one, if you're unfamiliar with the way the Socket Boss works, you've got your tray here and you got these little detents, 1, 2, and 3 respectively. So when I press down here and push forward with my thumb, I've then slid that forward and I'm able to extract an entire rail. So we have our 1/4 drive rail out of the tray. I'm now going to do the same thing. This time I'll press here, but I'll show you what I'm doing on the back side. I just simply slide it forward. We come in, you can clearly see what's happened there. So I'm just gonna pop off our 1/2 inch drive rail. I'm gonna set it off to the side. And now we have a lone 3/8 drive rail. I'm going to attempt to see if we can pull this out. Should be a lot of labels here, because there is a lot of pegs. I don't remember the exact breakdown, but I want to say it was like 22 1/4, 18, and 17 or 15. There's a bunch. I'll just leave it at that. Now, if you're following along and you're thinking like, well, hey, you still can't fit that here, no worries. We're going to extract this 3/8 rail. It's going to come in right there, and then we're going to extract this 3/8 rail, and it is going to go right there. So that is the beauty of the Ernst system. Now, they don't sell currently that I'm aware of at this point in time, because they would have just sold that to me, a 3-row 3/8 drive, but we just created one. And if you're thinking like, oh cool, and now you know you can just put this back here and put that one there, and you're thinking like, oh bummer, you know, 1/4 and 1/2, you know, who's going to use that setup? Well, you're right, we totally populate it and use it, but it's not ideal. Luckily, if you pay attention to these rails on the profile, they're exactly the same. Okay, so I know one has 1/4 and one has 1/2 inch, but when I flip them over, they are identical. And what that means, I can slide every single one of these pegs off, and I can slide every single one of those pegs off, and we can go to town. Okay, another thing, a lot of people are unaware, you can take this peg and you can slide it here, or you can put more pegs. So if you wanted this to lay down flat in your box, you can basically double your peg storage, right? That's going to be another project for another day, because what we're going to tackle right now is setting this up. Now, if you're thinking like, well, hey, you need to snap those rails in place. Well, it's just as easy as removing them, but I'm going to go through here, as painstaking as it may be, we're going to attempt to label these, space them as we want them, discard the pegs we're not using. We're not going to throw them away because we might need them at some point. Case in point, this is 5/16 to 1 inch. What if we add quarter? What if we add, inch and a quarter, inch and an eighth, something like that? Well, we can simply put the pegs back on, provided the sockets would fit. So the way these come, this is an 18-inch Socket Boss setup. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and the last one makes 18. 18-inch Socket Boss for 3/8 drive comes with 18 pegs. Doing some quick math back here. Again, 5/16 to 1 inch. Big to little, because that's the way the tray works. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So, simple math, 12 is 2/3 of 18. That means 6 is our common denominator there. We're going to essentially have 6 spare pegs per rail. And if you're thinking what I'm thinking, okay, we take 6 from here, 6 from here, 6 from there. They're all 3/8 drive. 6 plus 6 plus 6, 6 times 3, what's that? 18. How many of these are on a rail? 18. So, our little half and quarter drive stuff, we could potentially create a 4th 3/8 drive rail if we want to. You can also do quarter, 3/8, half, whatever you need to do. But I'm going to can it, and what I'm going to do, I guess we'll start with this one since it came from the 3-row. I don't know that there's going to be enough labels. There should be. I've never actually used one of the labels. I'm not sure if I'm going to like the labels. I might hate the labels. But by golly, we've got them and we are going to use them. So this is what came with our 3-row Socket Boss. We might have to mix and match, move around, but I'm actually going to label each one of these things. It's going to take some time, and I don't even know if I'm going to time-lapse it for you. I think I'm probably just going to turn on some Pearl Jam and get to work here. But I'll probably show you one rail or something. If it wasn't awkward for me to work, I'd try to time-lapse. It's probably one of those things that's going to be super time-consuming, but also super satisfying, if that makes any sense. But just to kind of give you a sample here, now that I've located some of the sizes, right there, follow me to like half. See, there's a cluster of halves, cluster of 9/16, a couple of 5/8 there, 5/16 here, 4 of them. We're going to go through and we're going to populate all 3 rails with labels. One of them at least should be functional. I may try the bare minimum there. But the truth is, if I did the bare minimum, while we might have the tray positioned just like this and see the shallows and no, because we could stagger the sockets so they're directly in line with one another. We could offset them so you can actually see the labels, unlike that one. If I were to ever be like, okay, hey, I got to go help a buddy out and I'm just going to grab the deeps to be safe, right, or something, or semi-deeps, we can detach the rail and then you wouldn't have the label. Granted, in the case of the impacts, it's stamped and, which you can't really see super well, but it's stamped and laser etched. But you get the idea. If it's chrome, sometimes with a twist lock, size markings don't line up perfectly. So I think we're going to go ahead and go all out and label everything. So it's currently 6:10. Let's see how, let me prove it to you. I'm sorry, my watch was apparently lagging. 6:20:55. So starting at about 6:20. Let's populate this thing with labels and see how it goes. All right, I'm sitting here. I'm crazy. I realized, hey, I've got a timer I could use on the watch. So it was around 6 minutes 20 seconds, and basically what I've done, we've got 5/16 all the way up to 1 inch. If you do the math with me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are the 6 that we technically don't need for this set. We'll have to see. There's a chance the 13-inch rails would be better. We'll play with that as we get to it, but for all intents and purposes, that's populated. I was also originally doing 2 rails at a time, and then we sort of got to a deal where there was, what size was it, 11/16, I think. 7/16 only had 1, and then I think 11/16 had 1. You can kind of see what was going on there, but basically, one rail you could probably have done in about 6 minutes. This looks really good. It's not near as tedious as I thought it would be. And what's cool, you can sort of dictate the position. I think the best one I did was the first one I did, the 5/16. 3/8 is a little high. But, I was super paranoid. I didn't want the label to hang off of the bottom. It might actually be better, now that I sit here and look at them, to start at the bottom. But man, these look really nice. I can't wait to see the sockets on them. But the thing is, we got 2 more rails. So again, we've talked a little bit of time here, but I mean, even factoring that in, we're up to 8. I'm going to get back to work and see what these look like. All right, so what's the verdict? 18 minutes, 12 seconds. That includes me dropping a set of labels once, having to get all the way off this comfortable chair and get them. And it includes a couple of text messages. So basically 6 minutes of rail. There is one problem. It's totally not Ernst. It's totally not Capri or anything. It's me. The way the labels work, like you get kind of like 2 of small sizes, right? So like you got 5/16 twice, 11/32, 9/32, seldom use stuff once. 3/8, 2, 7/16 only 1. So a 7/16 I have to jump to another sheet. The 9/16, 5/8 you only get 1, and then you start getting 1 basically from 5/18. This vacant space is like 11/16 to 1 inch essentially. And if you look at that, and then you look at this, aside from me screwing up and pulling the T50 off, and then you look at this one, you'll note that there's a lot of real estate here, a lot of real estate there, and then there's something here. And that something is 13/16. And I think it was when I had a text come in, I wasn't like paying attention, and I don't really think of 13/16 that much. If you look at the rails, we have a situation here where it seems like some of them go out farther than the others, and it's not just spacing of the pegs. Because right here we go 3/4, 13/16, 7/8, right? And then back there in the middle we go 13/16 in between. And then right there we go 3/4 to 7/8. That's not a comprehensive set. So what we're going to have to do here is slide the pegs off. This is not an end of the world type of thing. I'm going to see if I can maneuver. There's so much stuff that you don't see on the floor here. So let's see if I can showcase this. Did I do this intentionally for educational purposes? We're just going to run with that because it works better, right? So the clips themselves, the twist lock pegs, kind of hard for me to showcase it on camera. Alright, so what I've done here, I have pulled them with these little needle nose pliers. That seemed to be the better way to do it. Hold on to them, that way they don't ricochet like the first one did. But now, we got to see if we can stick the 13/16 in place. So I'm going to try to get this where you can see it and I can't, and boom, just snapped right in. That'll save me a ton of trouble. The other thing, I got to track down another 7/16 label. So in terms of getting these off though, you basically, I was just flipping it over like this, grabbing here and twisting down. The pliers will hold them. They come off really well that way. I thought, and what I remembered, I thought they slid off the edge, but I had a heck of a time getting that to happen. There's just this little bow right there. I kind of think we could pull them with a screwdriver and make that happen. But it does sort of spread them a little bit. It's really hard for me to get 18 inches in front of the camera for you. But you saw, if you just set it in place and snap it, you will, for orientation purposes, want to always have the peg. I guess it's foolproof. I've never actually had to worry about that, so I guess it can go either way. But if you come in over here, as I had mentioned, if this was going to be flat in a drawer, like the old school way of keeping sockets, you can completely populate this bottom of the rail, because as you can see, you can take this sucker, I'm going to spin it around for you, same peg, on and off all the way. So this little ear right here, it looks like a piece of toast. I don't know if you can see it too well, the little wings. That's what's keeping this from sliding on like it does the bottom. But again, I'm going to try, I'll keep this hand steady and shove this rail through. Now I'm going to pull the rail through. So this entire bottom row is also able to be populated. I think it's important that we highlight that. But I have to now find the 7/16, get a 13/16 there, and then what we will do is populate this, each rail while they're still loose, and see what we think spacing wise, and then I'll determine if I want to space it all the way out, or we'll measure and see like what kind of confines we would be in for examination reasons. If we go socket to socket here, it's like 12 and a half. I don't know that you can see that. 12 and a half. The whole tray is essentially like 13 and 3/4-ish. There's a chance we could get by with some smaller rails. So, man, everything's going crazy here. What I'm going to do, though, is find these missing pieces, get this populated, see how we like it spread. The bonus of having the extra 5 inches, you can get, like right here, I mean, you can pick them up, but sometimes, you know, it's a little difficult. You can space it if you want maximum space constraints and you're set, you're totally 100%. I want to go 3/8 to 3/4 or 5/16 to 1 inch, whatever. If you know exactly what you're doing, you're never going to go smaller, never going to go bigger, never going to interject something in the middle. You've got some serious like leeway in terms of sizing this in accordance, but kind of going off on a whim, and I'm not sure 13's available in the new colors just yet, so that's the big thing there. But I'm gonna get these stickered up, and then we're gonna go to town and see what it looks like. All right, so check it out. We've got 5/16 all the way to 1 inch populated. That's the rail that we had to customize. Even with me making the video and doing random stuff throughout this, we're only 30 minutes in. I'm wiping the sockets down too. You can see the rag over there, so just to try and get as much residual oil off. These again were not near as bad as the metric sockets. That blue rail is absolutely like an oil slick. But this is the populated rail. These are our 3/8 deep. It's not locked into the Socket Boss just yet, but I want to highlight, like, I loved having the downward label, like the top side here. The thing is, as we got little past 9/16 at 5/8, you know, the stock size changed just enough that you can't utilize that at all. It's there, but you're going to have to go by that bottom section there. So you can kind of zoom in, see 5/8, 11/16, 3/4. It's getting blurry. There we go. You get the idea. So, I mean, that's what she's going to look like, fully populated in these big sizes with the deep well. So it does obscure the numbers a bit. That's something, if you're always using bigger sizes, you might be leery of. That said, the big sizes should be, you know, it's kind of weird to have 15/16, 1 inch on 3/8. So the real estate on a peg of a 1/2 inch drive, where you would typically have these sizes, is probably visible. I can't say 100%, but it should provide more real estate if nothing else. So what I want to do now is just kind of showcase this. I've got everything oriented beautifully. We've got the label for 5/16 and the laser etching for 5/16. The laser etching will eventually wear off, and we might go by the stamping, maybe the part number, but I'm going to try to one-hand this. This is latched in something somehow. Not good. Let me pick it up this way. So this is just one-handed, and I mean, this is a substantial amount of weight. I want you to pay attention that nothing is dropping or sliding. I have these spaced kind of how I want them. I'm now going to hold it by the 11/16 and flip this for you. Again, we're doing that left-handed kind of across my body while I sit, but you get the idea. That's rigid. That's not going anywhere. If I pick up that Westling tray and turn it upside down, we're going to have 12 sockets to clean up. So the way it works out, I'm kind of glad I popped those 6 off, and it looks like we can reuse them elsewhere, because, yes, I'll admit I could totally crunch these things up, eliminate the space, but with the twist lock, I kind of need a little bit of space, you know, to get my fingers. Case in point, if you still don't know how it works, you've missed some videos, you just turn and release, and then to come in, you drop her down. This, you can totally leave your sockets that way. It's totally functional. However, if you do move the box, you grab the tray to throw it in your service truck or whatever it may be, these are not locked in position. They're held in place, kind of like the Westling tray, but to lock them, you'll need to turn them. And again, if I have these sidewall to sidewall, yeah, I could probably cram, you know, 2 more sockets, or maybe 3 or 4 even smaller sizes. But, you know, I need to be able to get like my thumb, index, and traffic fingers, sort of how I'm grabbing these. Obviously, you get down here, you want even more space. So keep that in mind, but I mean, this amount of sockets across an 18-inch rail spaced, I would say pretty generously, especially down here. I could probably close that gap. I started spacing the big sizes first, and then I got down here and I hadn't used up the space, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna shimmy that in and then space from there. So you can tweak it. You could fit more if you needed to. You could fit fewer if you wanted to. But at this point in time, we've got that rail pretty stacked. So I'm going to clean up the others, grab the semi-deeps, and get this thing in. Again, if we wanted to populate this into the tray, you would simply, I'm trying to line it up down there. I think you can see that. And then right there as well. But we've got to scoot back because we need that in place. And then I want to make sure it's tracked in the middle and then tracked at the end. I'm going to try to do this one-handed. How, you ask? Well, I'm holding the camera, as you may have guessed. It was that easy. That's latched, and that stayed in position under that little black plastic tab, right? So like this rail would go inside these two. That's what we did with the deep one. I was able to do that one-handed, so a really robust system. I could now grab the tray, flip it over. These two are going to cascade out because they're not latched in, but the deeps aren't going anywhere. So I'm going to go ahead. I need to get to the bathroom pretty bad here. I've been drinking a lot of lemon water. But, I'm going to try to wipe the sockets down and get these rails populated and then show you the finished product. But initial impressions with this little project, it looks every bit as good as I thought it would. So pat on my back. As soon as the orange became available and I had the semis, I was like, we're doing it. I wasn't sure we'd have Capri. Might have gone a different route, you know, like for the shallow and deep, since I like the chamfer, which again, I've covered that in those videos. But this is going to look super good, especially in our US General service card. So I'm going to get this thing populated. I have had like 3 stickers, half 15/16 here, and then I think, yeah, 9/16. They are kind of lifting. That's not with me using them. It's, I don't know, I'd say like maybe 1 in 5 or 6 going at the rate we are. So I'm interested to see, like, especially with these bigger sizes that are putting weight on the sticker, like that 3/4 one is lifted a little bit. I'm kind of wondering like what they'll do long term, and I honestly don't know, so we'll just have to wait and see. That's really my only concern at this point. But for someone that's never taken the time to actually label a Socket Boss, very satisfying. So I'm going to get back to it. We'll kind of showcase the end result for you. All right, so it's 7:21, so we've been at this about an hour. Granted, I ran in the house, did some stuff, took a phone call, you know. So basically to label each rail was 6 minutes, and then I wiped down the sockets again. Again, you can see the oil rings, I think. Let me kind of, right, I mean, you can see them, you know, the rings around the pegs. The reason everything is populated except this is it is nasty. Like, it's kind of like that right I had, you know, that came from HG that just had that like tobacco trail on it. This does not come off at all. So I'm going to hit it with some ballastal and kind of see what it looks like. Let me get you a decent look at how nasty it is. It's sort of hard in the light, but like that's not oil, that's like a staining from the oil or something. So I'm gonna scrub that, see if we can get it clean, and then I want to showcase this to you. This is the semi-deeps, everything but the 15/16 is there. I've got a battery light, dadgummit. Shallow, same thing. I stacked the 6 pegs here. I don't like that. I think I much prefer having the orange visible just for aesthetics, and then also having 6, 12, 18 pegs available for another purpose. It's not like these are exclusive to orange. They'll work on blue, green, any color, any rail. So I mean, you could totally populate a 3/8 rail and then some. So what I'm going to do is try to clean that up, get this thing tucked in, and then showcase it for you pretty quick, because like I said, I've got a low battery light. Alright, this is a really weird camera angle, so I'm using the flip out, but I want to show you how well this works just with the combination needle nose plier. Basically, I like the aesthetic of not having the pegs. These are spaced differently. I'm not sure if we're going to stagger them or line them up evenly, but basically I just come in and lift like that. That would have been on the mat, would have been wonderful. No real pressure. I realize now you can't see anything I'm doing. So, yeah, just if I awkwardly do this off to the side or I can't get a good grip because I'm looking at the camera, you basically grab and lift, and then essentially I can just come in and take the 3 of them off, and then 2 fell to the floor. But that's how easy it was. The ballastal, I applied that stuff, and man, that's something in the coating on that 15/16. So again, to stick these into place, we just want to nest them in the rail, and then we want to drop the peg down on this far side you can't see, get this positioned correctly, snap her in place. We've now got the ability to stagger these or to line them up dead on, right? So I can make all the ones be over here. I guess for symmetry, that's what you'll do. Again, for preference, you can do whatever, but this is a horrible camera angle, so I'm going to get these positioned, lined up for OCD people, and then in a box, hopefully before the battery's dead. There she is. Dare I say, Impact Socket Organization Nirvana. This is pretty much exactly what I had in my mind. It's what I was planning in the long run, and it actually panned out beautifully. Every once in a while it happens. Whether it's the best laid plans or the worst laid plans, sometimes things go according to plan, sometimes they backfire, sometimes that turns out to be better than what was planned. This, everything just lined up perfect. I could not be more happy with it. Basically, again, to recap, 3/8 drive Capri, SAE Impact, 5/16 to 1 inch. I've got it in my style, so we have 5/16 here, 1 inch there. That's the way I want it. That's the way I personally prefer it. In this case, we have shallow, semi-deep, and deep. This is my first ever full set of semi-deep, which I'm thrilled about. And I've got them structured the way I want those to be, with shallow in the front, semi in the middle, and deep in the back. So this is all custom tailored by me, and that's the way I want it, because it's the stuff I'm going to use and have to deal with every day. So we went ahead and we populated the labels. Again, basically 6 minutes per rail, you know, to find the stickers, get them on, everything like that. Nothing crazy. Just looks killer. Again, for some reason, this box always winds up looking like brighter orange than it is. It's not the darkest of oranges, but it's not the shade it comes through, so it's a little misleading. If you can ever see a US General orange, that's what we're dealing with. That just looks killer. Obviously, it's the only thing up here for video purposes, but I gotta say, I mean, just push her back against the wall, which would be easier if the cart was locked. And you kind of get where we're going. So again, this is the 18-inch rails. We created this by buying the Socket Boss with 1/4, 3/8, and 1/2, and then a 2-row Socket Boss that had 2 orange 3/8 rails. We simply pulled those two, swapped them for the 1/4 and the 1/2 inch respectively, and this is what we came out with: a 3-row 3/8 drive Socket Boss in orange from Ernst, with the labels all across the board. Now again, as I mentioned, like right up here, it's amazing. You got 5/16 top down, 5/16 from a front view. That lasts until about 9/16 is when it starts to occlude. By 5/8 it's totally covered. And then of course, as you get bigger, it's more and more, and then like the 1 inch, you almost even start occluding that drop down. The cool thing on the front row, we have the laser etchings, which are still visible since it's brand new sockets. Now over time that would wear off, but that helps. For OCD people, I tried to stage these perpendicular, you know, where they're like in a straight line, I guess I should say. If you wanted to stagger these, you could totally do that, especially if you had like mixed match sets, like maybe your semi-deeps were like 7/16 to 3/4 or 3/8 to 3/4. You could sort of stagger them. If your deeps started at 1/4 and went bigger, you could do that. I mean, whatever you need to do with the Ernst system, you can make happen. There's the labels for it. It's just, in terms of customization, it's fantastic. Now, in terms of moving this, I went all the way from the workbench over here to the cart in front of the truck, and zero issues. You've got 2 handles. It's heavy, obviously not super heavy, but I mean, it's robust. It's going to hold. The best thing, though, if I've got a buddy pull up on the driveway and he's like, yo, you know, got some trouble with my carburetor and we're going to swap it, whatever we're doing. If I want to take the whole tray, I can. If I want to just grab one socket strip, I can. Like if somebody's over here and they're like wanting to borrow tools on the driveway, if the bays are all full or whatever, I can just like, instead of giving them the whole tray, I can just give them the shallow or the deep or whatever. And that's all because of the modularity of the Socket Boss. So I'm thrilled, couldn't be happier. We're going to get to see how we like the Capri sockets over time. We'll see how we like this setup over time. Initially, This is like the bee's knees. Not only does it look good, it's organized, it's labeled, it's sized. It's everything I could hope for in an initial impression. So the bottom line, like if we need, say, 9/16, we got 3/8 stuff, we're gonna twist, we're gonna unlock, we're gonna go to town, put it back. I don't think I'm gonna have issues with it, but over time we'll see if we like this, if we just preferred we could come grab a socket versus a twist and lock. It's all kind of up in the air, you know, in terms of the long-term stuff, but man, right now this is killer. Couldn't be happier, especially with the laser etching. Everything lines up. There's only one detent on these sockets. In addition to no chamfer, there's just like one detent. Let me show you what I mean with 15/16 here. The side with the hole, that is the only one that has a recess. All the others are flush 90 degree. So that's kind of a deterrent, but also ties in with no chamfer. So I guess it should be more rigid. Hopefully it lasts longer without wallering out, because otherwise I would prefer the chamfer. But in terms of lining this up with the laser etching, it works beautifully. So that's not like a reason to buy the sockets, but for this video and everything, it's sweet. So there's kind of a zoomed in look at the rows. Again, if you staggered them, you could see the size labels if that's a big deal to you. If they match, you can just go 1, 2, 3. Like let's say you always use deep. You don't even have to go top down to try and see your labels. You can just be like, oh, I need 3/4 deep, and you go. So I'm thrilled. I love it. This was sort of like a one-off custom deal specifically made by me for me. And that's what you can do too with the Ernst system. Again, if you go 1/4 to 3/4, if that's what you think 3/8 is, if that's what you have and you bought, and you want orange, green, blue, red, black, high-vis, whatever, you can do it. If you can get by with 13 inches, if you think, man, look at all that real estate that's wasted, you should stick those things together, you know, screw the twist lock, getting them in and out easier, just pile them all in, you can still get them off, you get by with a 13-inch rail. You do you. For me, I like the spacing. We're not quite to a point, especially with all the new boxes we've added, where I have to worry about shaving the 5 inches off. So ultimately time will tell, but the battery is flashing still, not dead. But I should use that to make my closeout. If you like this, let me know. If you would do something different, tell me, whether it's you would have 1 inch over here, 5/16 there, if you'd have deep in the front, shallow in the back, whatever. What would you change? Would you do it the same way? Are you going to do this yourself? Do you dig the orange? Do you think the orange and black? And this is what I had in mind for the orange, by the way. All along with impact sockets, I knew it was going to look killer, and it does. I think it looks a little better in person than it does through the camera. Could just be me. But, man, it's cool. So we got our orange cart, we got our orange rails. Will we do green for the metric? I don't know. Will we do orange and just stick with the labels? Let me know what you would do. You know, a lot of times, like I said, red and blue, SAE and metric. I'm not a big fan of that. I'd rather do all blue if I had to pick. Here, do we want to do green for metric? I don't know. So we'll figure it out. You know, who knows, we might wind up squishing this down to 13 inches, but it'll all play out over time. Initially, though, I'm thrilled. I love it. I hope you do too. Leave your thoughts and comments down here, especially if you've used the Socket Boss. What are your impressions? Same with the Capri socket, since it integrates in this video. Feel free to leave your thoughts, but man, personally, right now, I love it. Nothing I would change about it at this point in time. So with that said, I'm going to get inside, make myself a sandwich. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a little something. I hope, most importantly, you have yourself a fantastic weekend. LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. Sounds like my watch is bugging out. Battery is low. I guess we left the timer running. But yeah, man, this is killer. Love the size labels. Again, where they're really going to shine is not necessarily in this configuration looking down on them, although that helps. But if we were to pull the deeps, go under a vehicle into the engine bay, then you can see them much easier than we have with this current configuration. So with that said, I'm thrilled. Have a great weekend. I'll catch you back here for more action from the shop.